Welcome, everyone. Today we are hosting the July 2026 Contractor Training Session for the Colorado Energy Office Heat Pump Tax Credit Program, commonly referred to as HPTC. Thank you for joining us. Taking a look at our agenda, we'll be going with some quick introductions as I'm joined by a co-host today. Then we'll do a short review of the required contractor trainings. You're currently participating one right now, along with the program's equipment, eligibility requirements, and the resources and tools we have made available to you. The main focus today is the annual heat load calculator tool. We'll review the statutory background and a deep dive into the tool, including a live demonstration. I am pleased to announce that we have some updates regarding the format of the required quiz. More on that in a bit, but there'll be some new instructions for how to access that. I kindly ask that you hold all questions until the end of the presentation. Similar to our past training, we'll be covering a fair amount of material. You're welcome to type your questions into the chat as we have staff monitoring that, or maybe even jot it down on a notepad in front of you. We'll have time for an interactive Q&A at the end of today's training. Thank you again for being here. My name is Amanda Morris, and I'm your contact for the HPTC program. For any questions, please reach out to me via email, which is available along with our program web page on the slide. I encourage you to bookmark this web page, energyoffice.colorado.gov/HPTC, which will serve as your hub for all program-related updates and information. Also on this call is Lorna Honan, my colleague at the Energy Office, and Eric Ruffle from CLP Engineering. We will hear from Eric in a little bit. CEO will be hosting 4 trainings throughout this year, roughly once per quarter. These sessions are held via Zoom and are generally last between 45 minutes to an hour. Every registered contractor business in the program must have at least one staff member participate by either attending the live session or watching the recording. The recording and these slides will be emailed to you, in addition to being available in the Contractor Toolkit. Following the webinar, you will need to complete a knowledge quiz. The knowledge quiz must be completed and passed within 14 days of the webinar being shared with you. Each business will have 2 opportunities to achieve a score of 100%. We have updated the required quiz format. I will be explaining that in further detail at the end of today's training. All of the answers can be found within this webinar and the CEO provided resources. I encourage you to review the recording and these slides as needed. Please note that failure to complete and pass this quiz may lead to removal from the program per our linked removal and re-enrollment procedure. Heat pump tax credit equipment eligibility. I will now do a quick overview of the program requirements. To qualify for the tax credit, systems must be Energy Star certified and AHRA matched. The system must be designed to supply at least 80% of the total annual heating load and be a whole home or whole building solution. Installations must meet all codes, standards, and manufacturer specifications. Installing technicians must have the appropriate 608 certificate and brazing where applicable. Lastly, the customer invoice must clearly display the line item description, State of Colorado heat pump discount and equal at least 33% of the total credit. Please refer to the contractor checklist for the full requirements and tax credit amounts. That link is available directly on this slide.
Thank you, Amanda. Real quick, maybe it's just my view, but I'm not seeing the slides right now.
I can
Laura?
see the slides. Can everybody else, with just like a thumbs up, let us know if you can see the slides?
Okay. Yeah, I think it's just my view because of the alternate way I was dialing in. Sorry about that, Amanda.
Good in the chat? Yes, okay, great, thank you. Um, I want to reiterate one specific requirement, as this will be a key transition into today's topic. The program defines a primary heat source as a system capable of providing at least 80% of the building's total annual heating. It must be capable of distributing heat to all conditioned areas of the building. Tax credit eligible installations are intended to be a whole home or whole building heating solution. Only one credit is eligible per installed system, including all condensers and air handlers. It is not for individual, it's not per individual components. Please be aware that many standard heat pump installations may not meet these specific criteria for the tax credit. We'll get into that today. The contractor checklist, the customer checklist, your FAQ document, all of that and more can be found in one central place, the HPTC Contractor Toolkit. You can access this wealth of resources by visiting the program webpage and clicking the link Contractor Resources at the top of the webpage. This is a recent website update and the goal of making these resources more accessible to you, the contractor. Again, I strongly recommend either bookmarking our full web page, just the toolkit, or both for easy access. The toolkit is also linked directly on this slide. All right, now on to today's topic, the annual heat load calculator. The HPTC program was created as the direct result of legislation, House Bill 23-1272, titled Tax Policy That Advances Decarbonization, and subsequent updates from Senate Bill 24-214, Implement State Climate Goals. Within those bills, it is specified that only heat pumps installed as the primary heat source are eligible for the credit. The requirement is that the system must be designed to supply at least 80% of the total annual heating load. The challenge here is that while traditional manual J calculations are great for design loads, they don't necessarily reflect annual performance, which is why we needed to develop this tool. CEO's goal was to create a simple, repeatable, and shareable spreadsheet process. It functions by comparing your installed equipment's capacity against Colorado's specific meteorological data. The outcome is designed to be clear, documented evidence that you can use to demonstrate that your project meets the eligibility requirement for the tax credit. I want to be clear, this is a program compliance tool. It is not a substitute for comprehensive project design or sizing. For an advanced analysis, such as modulation studies, please use industry standard tools like NEAP sizing support tool. To confirm compliance, you will need to submit manufacturer, AHRI, or Energy Star coefficient of performance data. And with that, I will hand it off to Eric with CLP.
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Eric Ruffle with CLP Engineering and City Light and Power. I was originally trained by the Department of Energy to do energy audits beginning in the 90s, and have had the opportunity to focus on energy and sustainability throughout my career. Also listed on the slide, we have Alex Dresser. He works with me, also trained by the Department of Energy and a graduate of the Colorado School of Mines a few years ago. Before that, he spent 5 years doing utility locating and 5 years with the Marines before that. Our team developed the tool we're looking at today. Next slide, please. So to reiterate, the reason for the tool development is to support HPTC compliance documentation. It's not a substitute for the design process. The tool documents and validates specific heat pumps requirements and that they meet at least 80% of typical heating needs while providing beneficial heat pump usage. Fundamentally, there is flexibility in the program to allow for coldest day supplemental heating if the design team feels such as necessary. So this tool similarly reflects the flexibility provided in the legislation. Next slide. In using this tool, it's important to select the closest or most representative location. Across Colorado, we have quite a few different varieties and local conditions and weather. So the tool has been adopted to recognize that variability. The tool references common cut sheet or manufacturer data and uses that as an input. Key documentation to compile includes the manufacturer's minimum operating temperature and the coefficient of performance, or COP, at that temperature. COP is fundamentally an efficiency metric. If you have a COP of 2, 2 heats of energy are being brought from the outside of the building into the building for each unit of electric energy input into the heat pump. As another point of comparison, a resistance electric heater might have has a COP of 1. Next slide, please. Now let's move into a demonstration of the annual heat load calculator. Amanda will share her screen, and together we'll walk through using the tool.
Thanks, Eric. Now I get to do the exciting thing of transitioning screens that I'm sharing. All right.
Yep.
So to access the tool, I previously opened the HPTC Contractor Toolkit, selected the document Tools for Program Compliance for HPTC Contractors, and clicked the link Heat Load Calculator. This automatically forced a download of the Microsoft Excel document. Important programmatic note, the heat load calculator form is designed to run on newer versions of Excel. So within our office, we noted that versions of Excel older than 2019 might experience some challenges. Simply updating your Microsoft suite should resolve these specific issues.
Yeah, and as you can see on this tab, and as we've discussed a couple of times previously, the tool is configured to support documentation that demonstrates that the heat pump application meets 80% of heating needs. It's been configured with two tabs: the predefined option, which uses standardized assumptions supporting uh, demonstration of the 80%. And then the second tab allows for increased flexibility for some of the unique situations, and that's the detailed option tab. Amanda, can we take a look at the predefined option first? Uh, so, Amanda, go ahead and start entering data for your project.
So up here in the cell B1, I'm going to say that I'm installing the system at 123 Main Street. For Denver, I see that the list below, the closest airport is DIA. I go down to this section for minimum operating temperature. So I see in the list that the minimum operating temperature for Denver for a favorable COP above 1.5 is 24 degrees. I look at my cut sheet and see 15 degrees and a COP of 2.0. So with that, I will set cell B3 and B4 to yes. This heat pump is the only source of heating in my building, and there is no supplemental heat system. So for cell B5, the cell will also be set to yes.
Great news. So the tool indicates that the application meets the technical criteria for eligibility with the green tag and the qualifies for tax credit. So it is recommended that you print and save the output along with the cut sheet documenting the COP and the minimum operating temperature. Now we can move on to the detailed option tab, which provides flexibility for conditions other than standard assumptions.
All right, so for this tab, I'll start by again entering my address into cell B1. This will be a different house on Main Street in Denver. In cell B2, just like in the first tab, I'll select the closest or most representative weather station, similar to what we demonstrated prior. So because I'm in Denver, I'm going to make it easy for myself. For cell B3, I'm going to enter in the 15 degrees we discussed on the prior tab.
Yay! So there in B10, we've confirmed that we meet the 80% threshold. Now this is just part one, the first phase of the screening for this tab. Prior to moving on to the second phase of screening, let's look at cells B4 and B5. These two cells allow for variations in individual temperature set points and anticipated internal heat gain. In general, it is best to leave these as presented. However, if you have documentation and justification for making changes for a special situation, this is where those two inputs would be made. Okay, Amanda, can you please enter in 3 degrees instead of 5 degrees? Uh, let's assume that it's a house that doesn't have much internal heat gain. And then let's assume that we're only heating to 65 degrees instead of 72 degrees. And notice that we went from 95% down to 94%. It still is well above the 80% threshold, but it did go down. And even though the home is operating more efficiently, what's happening behind the scenes is that those temperatures below 15 degrees are now a bigger percentage of the heating versus a less efficient operation of trying to meet a 72-degree set point. So uh, these results are expected. Uh, and then um, and most importantly, we still qualify. So just wanted to pass along that again, we don't necessarily want to change those two set points, but the flexibility exists uh, for situations where it's necessary or desirable. So Amanda, let's go ahead and proceed to the second part of the verification now. In cell A12, it indicates that we only go forward if we're 80% or greater. Amanda?
Great. Thanks, Eric. So again, so as Eric stated, B10 indicates that our application meets the criteria. And as stated in cell A12, that means that we can move on to the second set of verification questions. If cell B10 says that we do not qualify, then we do not move on and we need to select a more efficient equipment. Following on the first example, I'm going to confirm that our application does not have supplemental heating. I'm going to verify that our installation has a building permit and meets codes. Cells B4 to B12 are all yes. And as you can see, when I click the cell, this little drop down arrow appears. You can also double click right within the cell and the drop down appears. Again, since B14 to B16 are all yes, the heat pump meets the requirements.
Yay! So similar to the first tab discussion, it's advisable to print and capture the results along with the manufacturer documentation. For this scenario, we have assumed an application that does not include supplemental heat. In reviewing the applications for recent grant applications across Colorado, um, engineers have commonly been designing supplemental heat for the coldest days. Heat pump works by extracting thermal energy from the outside air. On very cold days, there's less thermal energy available outdoors, or it's less dense. So the heat pump has to work harder. As recent as 20 or so years ago, heat pumps really struggled to operate below freezing. But in particular, the cold weather, cold climate heat pumps are doing much better. The technology is much better, and now there are cut sheets operating, showing operational temperatures below 0 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's important when using either of these tabs that local codes and requirements are met. If a heat pump is proposed that likely will not be able to provide sufficient heat to meet design condition minimum temperatures, then all parties should be aware of those limitations, including the customer and the permitting authority. That And the reason that we're having the reason that we state that in there, and this is in particular what's in red under note 1 below, is it's possible to meet the 80% threshold, but for the heat pump to struggle to maintain a certain temperature on the coldest days in Colorado. So if the heat pump doesn't have supplemental heating, and if it's going to struggle, then the parties should know. But that concludes the demonstration on use of the tool. And now we're going to move back to the slide deck on slide 17. And each manufacturer could have cut sheets or install guides, and it may be necessary to reach out to the manufacturer's representative to find the specific documentation that we're detailing here, in particular the minimum operating temperature and coefficient of performance at that temperature. Although some manufacturers will have a chart where you can see the COP by temperature. Since there is variation by manufacturer, another option to consider are the Energy Star cold climate listed heat pumps. The definition is provided here, and in order to meet the criteria for Energy Star, your COP at 5 degrees has to be greater than 1.75. Since 5 degrees is below the temperature for each of the locations in the tool, if an Energy Star heat pump is cold climate listed, it meets the criteria for any location in Colorado in that tool. So that's another way to simplify the documentation process. And now where it's okay to move to slide 18, please. And similar to the use of the tool, it's recommended to perform screen captures of the efficiency or print in support of the technical side of validation of heat pump tax credit equipment performance compliance. So again, it just goes into your supporting data for the project. And Amanda, back to you.
Thanks, Eric. Okay, now moving on to the new format for the required contractor knowledge quiz. To access the July 2026 quiz, you are going to visit the HPTC Salesforce login page and log in with your same username and password. There is a forgot password prompt on that page, along with an email address for technical support, as I am not that person, but you're welcome to reach out to me and I can forward on your request. Once logged in, you'll navigate to the HPTC Applications tab at the top of the page and select the application number of the approved contractor application you want to submit the knowledge quiz for. This should all sound familiar to you as you have done this before to access your application number previously. Once on your approved application page, you'll find the quiz link on the right-hand side of the screen. Just like this one. These step-by-step directions, including screenshots just like this one, will all be emailed to you. One staff member from your team must complete the quiz to demonstrate proficiency in the material covered. While only one employee's name will be on the quiz, you are welcome to consult and sit with multiple team members. In addition to using all of CEO's provided resources, while you are completing the quiz. You have 2 attempts to reach a score of 100%. Understanding this tool is required for program compliance. There is a 14-day timeline to achieve this. We will be emailing this recording and the slides to all registered businesses within 24 hours from right now. Please take your time to read each question carefully. I want to just give a friendly reminder that you are not being timed, and failure to pass may result in the suspension of your business from the program. All businesses have 2 equal attempts to pass. If you pass on your first attempt, no further action is needed at this time. Your business remains in good standing with the program. If you fail your first attempt, a second quiz attempt link will appear in the same exact location as the first link was. Again, take your time to review the provided materials and read each question carefully. If you fail your first attempt, again, you'll go back to the approved HPTC application page, click the refresh icon, which is in the top left corner of your screen, and that second quiz attempt link will appear again in that same location. Failing both attempts will lead to CEO program staff reaching out once that 14-day deadline passes with the following steps. Most importantly, you will automatically receive a copy of your quiz score and responses each time to the email address you provided while taking the quiz. If you have any questions that are not answered here, please review the linked frequently asked questions for contractors document. Just once more, step-by-step directions to access the quiz, along with detailed screenshots, will be emailed to you. That is in addition to the slide deck and the recording. Thank you for your time and your commitment to this program. If you need anything further, you can reach me, Amanda Morris, at my email address linked here, or visit the HPTC webpage.